Now I've got all these different, applications out there that I'm really responsible for, keeping an eye on and making sure they're running healthy, right? So one of them I want to show you is our sales cart app, or our sales shopping cart app. This is where medical centers and hospitals can come in and they can buy, like I said, bandages, bedpans, whatever they need to buy is available, right? And it's being monitored by a combination of both service discovery, which actually helped us build out the the structure of the application, and application monitoring. And we're going to show you a bunch of different tricks and things that we've added in 8.0, and then show you the Troubleshooting Workbench as well. So you can see this shopping cart app has an application. It's got a database tier and a web tier. It's got a couple of web servers and a back-end database, which is MySQL. And I built this custom dashboard so I could keep an eye on what's going on in this particular environment. And right off the bat, I'm looking at it, and this application as a whole is 25% healthy. That's 75% unhealthy. That's not acceptable, right? That's very bad. I'm actually surprised the phone hasn't been ringing, but maybe I just got into the office. And I can see right off the bat from the tier health that seems to be that database tier, and the database tier sure enough has a red dot on it, indicating that this probably is someplace where I need to start. So I'm going to go ahead and click on him. And it's going to switch the views, so now I'm looking at the KPIs of just the database, right? So I'm looking at the MySQL database, and this is information coming in, again, from application monitoring of VROps, right? And a lot of green, but there's certainly one thing that stands out, and that's the CPU. It's spiked. If you guys are familiar with CPU demand versus CPU usage, CPU demand is how much I really, really want, and CPU usage is what I can get to. Right? And what this is saying right now is it really wants more than it can get to. So it's starving for CPU. I don't know why, but we should probably investigate that. So let me go ahead and click on this particular database server, or VM in this case. And I'm going to go into the VM and I'm going to start looking around. So right off the bat, I can see, okay, 4 CPUs. That's something I'm going to put in my noggin and keep an eye on. And there's also an alert up here just letting me know that, hey, the CPU, we're back over there. The CPU has been high for an extended amount of time. So this is something that's just a random spike. This is something that's been going on for at least maybe half an hour or more, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on that alert and see if I can get more information. Now, one of the nice things about VMware Operations is it's not just, hey, here's an alert, you go figure it out, right? It's here's an alert, here's my first recommendation, right? Check the processes running on that virtual machine. Is there a runaway process? Is there a hung process? Is something stuck in a bad state, right? And of course, now I swivel over and I start logging into that virtual machine, right? No, not anymore, right? Because like Taruna said, all this stuff is integrated, right? Whether it's out of the box or with our vRealize orchestration integration where you can bring in your own workflows, right? Or with, in this case, service discovery, application monitoring combination, I can do things like get top processes. Whew, that's cool, right? Right from here, I click the button, I let it know how many processes I want to bring back, and I hit run. And it comes back and says, here you go. Here's your top processes, right? And right off the bat, I can see, okay, MySQL is using 400%. Well, there's 4 CPUs, 100% each. That's what I expect, right? There's not like a weird McAfee thing or who knows what's running on there that I have to kill, right? So this is something where I got to figure out, well, why? Why is it using so much, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and I'm going to start looking in our new troubleshooting workbench, right? And the first iteration, the small version of it, is right from the alert itself, and it's called potential evidence. And potential evidence is going to bring up 3 pillars of information, right? The first thing it's going to bring up is any events. We're talking vSphere, NSX Manager, vSAN Manager. Is something going on? Let me know, guys, right? Because we're bringing in those events. The next one is property changes. Did somebody flip a switch on something? Did they change a configuration on something? Did something that was up now down, right? Those are all bits of information I can bring in. And the last one is using our parts of our machine learning, and it's called bringing in anomalous metrics. Are there metrics that are acting differently than they were a few minutes ago? Drastically differently, right? Those are telltale signs that there's something going on, right? I didn't see anything in here. This one's saying that CPU workload is high. I kind of knew that already, right? So I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to go to the full power of the workbench. Let's go ahead and launch it. Now, those 3 pillars now actually become pillars. There's my events. There's my property changes. There's my anomalous metrics. Now, if you've talked to anybody about machine learning, the first thing they're going to tell you is if you can't control the scope of what it's looking at, you're still looking at noise, period, right? And vRealize Operations gives you the ability to do this across 2 different vectors, right? The first vector is time. By default, I'm only giving you an hour of information. You know what? I want to expand this out. I want to go full 6 hours. I can even go backwards in time, look at certain periods of time, etc. I'm just going to go back 6 hours. Say go. Boom. Updates, right? The next thing is you need to control the scope of the topology, right? By default, we're giving you the VM that I'm looking at and anything that's basically one hop up and one hop down. So that means I'm looking at things like the data store, the OS, the host itself, right? Because this is a database server and I'm monitoring it, I'm going to expand it out one more because I want to include the database itself and actually the HTTP checks that I've got running against it using application monitoring. So I'm going to expand all those out. Now I've got a full screen of things to look at, right? Okay, NSX did something, that's not very exciting. DRS moved some things, not really, you know, property changes, there's nothing there. I'm starting to look at the anomalous metrics. I can start scrolling down. Whoa, okay, hold on a second. The connection count to the database has gone crazy since 9 a.m. What's going on there, right? So what this gives you the ability to do, this is the place where you can start pinning metrics, right? I can pin it or I can say, nah, not interested. So I can throw a metric away and say, get this off my workbench, get this off, this isn't the problem, this isn't the problem. Right? In this case, I'm going to go ahead and pin this, and you see the little metric guy up there get a little dance, and that means he's moved that metric that I'm interested in to my metrics tab, right? So I can go into that metrics tab, and again, now it's there. There's my my shopping cart app connection count for the database, right? And the next part of the machine learning of visualized operations kicks in. In this case, dynamic thresholds, right? And everything here that's got a little yellow tab is saying, hey, this particular thing is acting differently than it was before, right? Not a dramatic difference, but normally it doesn't act like this, right? So I'm giving you some abnormalities here. And I can say, grabbing the usage and grabbing the CPU demand. So what am I looking at here? The connection count went high. I have CPU usage, which is usually around, let's say 94, 95%. That's not scary. And then right about the same time the CPU went high, right? Or the connection count went high, my demand went through the roof. And now I'm starving this poor database for CPU, right? Okay, what do I do now? Well, now I take the new dashboard sharing, right? I zip all this up, I throw it onto a dashboard, and I reach out to the shopping cart app people and say, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, we've got a sale on bandages and syringes. Didn't we tell you this? Yeah, it's going through the roof. Everybody's getting it, you know, buy one, get one free. It's great. No, how long is that going to be going on? Well, a few weeks, so yeah, you know, it's probably going to be a problem. And we're noticing things are a little slow here and there. Okay, great. So you've had a conversation now with them and you decide that, yeah, you know what, actually adding a couple more CPUs to this is probably a pretty good idea. Go back to the VM. Again, I haven't left VROps at all, and I can go ahead and I can change my CPU count. Right now, it's going to say the minimum that it's suggesting is 5. No one's going to add 5 to one more. It's okay, but we don't know exactly. You may be a company that's okay with 6. You may say 6 is not okay. 8s, I only do doubles, right? That's okay. You have the ability to control that. Crank it up to 6, and then whether it's hot, do you have hot add enabled, hot add not enabled? Now, I'm playing games with this one because obviously it's a database. We'd schedule it and we'd do a whole change control, but they're in a hurry, so I'm going to go ahead and just begin that action. It's going to go out now to vCenter, going to change that, right? Going to add those 2 CPUs, right? And if I go back to the alert after a certain amount of time is going to clear and we're done. But wait, are we done? What if we made a change and something actually broke? How do we know things are okay, right? I did make the change they requested, but what if something happened when I rebooted the database and because I made those CPU changes, something, God help us, went wrong, right? This is where I can go back to the troubleshooting workbench and I can actually prove to myself that everything's not only okay, but better. In this case, I'm going to change my scope and I'm going to go down to just the VM. I just want to make sure the VM's okay. Everything's okay with it. And if I go and look at the VM and come over here and I can say, okay, the CPU queue has gone down, right? Right when I made that change and it rebooted, it went down. That's probably a telltale, right? And I'm going to pin that to my metrics tab. And then I'm going to use my last trick with my machine learning. And I'm going to use something called metric correlation. Metric correlation is going to look across this VM or the peers or whatever it's sitting next to. In this case, I'm just going to look across this VM and say, what other metrics are acting just like this one or the opposite of this one? Right? Because that's really telltale. If I make something go up and a whole bunch of stuff goes down, that may be good or bad. We need to probably look at it, right? So I'm going to use metric correlation and I'm going to say, let's correlate this across just the VM. and it's going to bubble for a couple of seconds. It's going to come back and say, okay, guess CPU went up, and then you made your change and it went down, and CPU demand did the same. Well, I expected that one, and I'm glad it did that, right? And the next, and I'm going to go ahead and pin that one, and then I'm going to scroll down and whoa, this is an interesting one. The writes to the database, the IOPS I was able to pull off to the database was down when the CPU was spiking and begging for CPU, and now when I made the change, it went back up. That's pretty cool. So now I can take these three, right? Make another dashboard, reach out to the database team or the sales team or the shopping cart team and say, hey, guess what? I made your change, and guess what? The CPU is now down, and you're getting better write throughput and probably better read throughput as well to your database. What do you guys think of that, right? And they say, that's the best. Thank goodness we've got Aria Operations.